Hello and welcome. I'm Reverend Debbie Bergio. Today I am joined by Veronica Siskak and Ellen Perticone. We are going to be talking about moving, downsizing, selling, and we're just so glad to have two experts in our area that can speak to all of these concerns that we may have as we age or our loved ones do. Veronica, you are the owner and team leader of V-Cells Associates here in Howard County, but I know that you serve all of the state of Maryland, or almost all of the state. I was wondering if you could spend a couple of minutes introducing yourself, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here today. So as Debbie said, my name is Veronica, and I run a real estate team here based here in Howard County. I have been licensed in Howard County as a real estate agent since 1998. Yes, I started when I was a baby. My father actually started real estate as a second career, and when I was in high school and just 16, he hired me as his assistant to, in my opinion, just go and get lunch for him and run errands that he didn't want to run. But it definitely sparked an interest for me. And when I was 18 and old enough, was able to get my real estate license and begin working as a realtor. So I've been around in the county for a long time and in the real estate market through obviously the rise and fall that we had in 2008. And it's been, really interesting to watch what's happened over the last 10 years to see everything rebuild and get back to more of I don't want to call it balanced because it's not balanced right now, but more of a normal situation. What we had in '08 was not normal. So right now my team has about 20 folks on it. I think every single one of them are licensed as real estate agents, but I have a client care team that helps take care of things in the background and paperwork and compliance and questions that are there, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We have marketing support to help, advertise all of our awesome listings. And, we have a really, really great group, and I'm very much enjoying being a team leader. Been in the business for a long time, but just started my team formally in 2019. So we're just finishing our second year, and what a 2 years it has been. Let's start a team and then let's have a global pandemic. But I'm really excited to be here today because over the last 20 years, and really most recently, have had a lot of clients and family members who have been faced with the downsizing and what to do next. And it can be very overwhelming. So I've really spent a lot of time putting together a program to really make it easy and as smooth as it possibly can to help folks sell their homes with the least inconvenience and make the most money and really help them unpack what needs to be done to make that happen. And I'm really enjoying it. And that is pretty much it for my intro. So I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Veronica. And we're also joined by Ellen Perticone. She is the owner of Senior Placement Navigators and is a certified dementia practitioner and also an outreach educator for the Alzheimer's Association. Ellen, please introduce yourself for a few minutes.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Ellen, and my business is Senior Placement Navigators. And this is a field that is relatively new. In the past 40 years, assisted living has come on the scene in a big way as part of a senior living mix. Before that, seniors would stay at home until they would go to skilled nursing. And things have changed dramatically in our culture and our society. So assisted living is an option for people when it is appropriate. And the other thing that I specialize in is memory care, because the single biggest factor of Alzheimer's disease and dementia is age. Well, we are living longer. We are living longer with chronic illnesses, and we see a lot more dementia that was in the past. So what I do is I help families as both a navigator and an advocate. And that's the key thing here is advocate. When I work with families, I help them through the entire process of what they tell me their situation. We talk about their goals. They may or may not have a goal, and that's part of the discussion. And if they have a goal, we talk about the goal and how we can work together to accomplish the goal. But the senior and the family is always number one. That is my objective. There's many other providers in senior living world, and a lot of them want your business. A lot of them may not take the time to explain processes and how things work and other resources that are out there. And I'll make it my business to know what's out there to provide that to seniors and their families. And so I know what I do, and Veronica does what she does. And as we have a meeting of the minds, and I have joined Veronica as a team member so that if her and her team are working with anything related to seniors or a senior's house or anything, I can be part of that team. I can help, I can consult to the extent that it is appropriate. And I'm there as a resource, one of many of Veronica's resources for her real estate.
Thanks, Ellen. I was going to say, it's not just happenstance that you two were on here together today. Can you share your outlook? You have a very similar outlook of how to serve the community. I was wondering if you could maybe go into that a little bit.
So, oh, go ahead, Veronica.
No, go ahead.
Well, one of the things I do, I'm participating in a lot of different organizations, but one of the things I do for the community at large is my volunteer work with the Alzheimer's Association. And the reason I do this is I used to work for a large senior living community. And when it came to dementia and Alzheimer's, nobody is really prepared of how to cope with this and deal with this. There are so many questions. Technology has come a long way in the past 10 to 15 years, and there's a lot more information out there than it used to be. One of the hardest things is for the families to cope and make decisions and work with the person and serve them the best way possible. And there's a lot of resources out there that people are really not aware of. So to make this journey easier, more helpful for the family, that's part of what I do with the Alzheimer's Association, and they have a lot of resources as well. So that's an example of something that I do with the community to give back and to educate, and knowledge is power.
Absolutely, which is amazing. And I would say that my desire to help this population has come into play with first working with some family members that really needed some help. And I think a lot of people that do work in this industry and this niche market, if you will, just to help seniors downsize and really help be the best we can, is having a personal experience. And my aunt was the first one a few years ago, and I could see, from a professional standpoint, but also from, I was her niece, and she was kind of like a grandmother, that she really needed to make a decision and really needed to downsize and needed to get out of her house. Her only bathroom was on the upper level. She was a little unsteady, and I being, not really knowing what I know now, and I don't know everything, not nearly what Ellen knows, but from a real estate agent standpoint, from a niece standpoint, I'm like, you're going to fall, you're going to hurt yourself. And then you're not going to have a choice, and I kept saying, if you make a choice now or look at your choices, you can decide. But unfortunately, if you have an event and you hurt yourself, then you're going to end up somewhere that you may not want. And additionally, and I saw this with my in-laws, my father-in-law was very stubborn man, love him, may he rest in peace. But he, living in the situation that he was in, kept falling and kept having these incidents, and I know it shortened his life. And so from having these personal experiences from a housing standpoint, should just say, we really need to talk about this. You really need to make some decisions. What do you want? How can we make that happen to make sure you're safe and you're in a place that you're, that you want to be in, rather than forced somewhere that you don't want to be. So this has come as a personal, personal thing for me to help. And I know that there are so many people out there that just don't know. So the most important thing, if this is something you're dealing with, is find professionals that have resources. This is why Ellen and I partnered, and my team has this dynamic offering, so that I don't know what Ellen knows, and Ellen doesn't know what I know, but together we can offer so much more to just make sure we're giving the highest level of service. And sorry, that was my dog. Shifted my old desk. to offer the highest level of service and resources, because as Ellen said, education and knowledge is power. And that's what people really need to know what's out there. And you don't know unless you're working with professionals who can point you in the right direction.
I like what you said, Veronica, about, if you don't make a decision, you are making a decision by default. And so a lot of times when I work with families, first of all, it doesn't cost anything to call me or talk to me and hold a conversation. And so, I'm offering that because it's just, people don't understand what their options are. That's the key thing. Okay. And if you don't make a decision, you are making a decision by default. And to learn what are your possibilities. I ask people oftentimes I'll say, if you had a magic wand, what would happen? And that kind of takes away all these extraneous barriers and said, okay, is that what your goal is? And then we identify it. During a first conversation with someone, I will talk to them about 4 basic things that is needed for transition. We discuss the finances. I mean, that's a big thing out there. It's not scary to me, but it's a fact. And if we know where we are, then we don't have to be nervous. We don't have to be stressed. We don't have to be scared. We just see, where are we? What people might not realize is there are certain subsidies out there for people who qualify for aid and attendance, a military benefit. The state of Maryland has a subsidy for certain candidates. So, and that is not Medicaid, but so there's possibilities. So we talk about finances in great detail, the health and health history of the senior, the locations preferred, and the timing. And it's their timing, not mine. I just answered an email this morning. Someone said she's a daughter-in-law, she wants to help, she doesn't want to be pushy. I understand. And so if they work with me, it's their timing, not my timing. They tell me what their goals are and when they are. And a lot of this is, if real estate is part of the mix, we look at that too. I mean, that's a big piece of the picture, a huge
Absolutely.
piece. And I'm not a real estate expert. So what we would do, obviously, is bring in some real estate experts and see, okay, let's look at it and see big picture, what would be ideal or what's realistic in this particular case.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're going to work case by case. And I am right now working with a 92-year-old woman, and she lives alone in the city, and she needs assisted living, which she's come around to that decision. She has to sell her house. And I think she thought, old school, she's got to go through everything. She's got to fix everything up. She has no family locally, but now she agrees that it's best for her to move and then let other resources come in and sell items, donate items, make sure she's got what she needs, but let the experts do it quickly and do it in a way that you're going to get the most money for your house. So
absolutely,
that could be helpful.
That's one of the things I really would love to talk about is our timeline. And we, as an adult who had, my parents have both passed now, but if I'm coming into a situation where I'm seeing, the decline or the need to move, maybe it's a fun move even. Maybe it is a move to an active community and not something that's looking at decline. I'm trying to look at the optimistic side of this. When we talk about this, we talk about a timeline. Veronica, what is maybe like the earliest you can see? I mean, I think of when I'm going to sell my house, I'm calling you when I'm ready for it to go on the market. But what are some guidelines, or maybe expand my horizons on that whole timeline thing, please?
I will say that you have the thought that a lot of people do, that I get calls, when folks are ready to put the sign in the yard, and we're sort of the last piece of the puzzle. And that's just not the case, at least not with our team. I would love to hear from people, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years ahead of their move, simply because I can give you market data for today, right? I mean, that is not going to stay the same over that period of time. However, putting a plan in place to say, these are the things that you need to do to fix your home up. These are, you should maybe move first and then plan to have the work done, which sometimes surprises people. They think they could stay and have the work done around them. But the reality is that, we do suggest sometimes figuring out what the next step is and then letting us come in and take care of getting the house ready. I have resources that will have contractors that can come in and estimate to get anything and everything done, from just freshening it up to completely rebuilding if need be. I even have a program that will allow sellers to pay that contractor at closing, which is something that is a big hang up for people, because a lot of times, you said money's important, and it is, and a lot of times it's wrapped up in the home. So they'll be cash strapped, but equity rich. So, developing this program that I have where we take the burden on to be able to get these things done will allow the home to sell at, for a higher dollar amount. And, realistically, even if you're ready to put the sign in the yard, it could take several months to get the work done and kind of get this all figured out. So my goal is to be an advocate well in advance of putting the sign in the yard. I always tell my clients a lot of my work, is done ahead of getting the sign in the yard. That's the easy part for me. But the sign in, we get it listed, we have excellent marketing, we have excellent resources, and, the market right now is basically doing it for itself. Things are selling very quickly. But a lot of the pre-work will go into really what the bottom line is for those sellers. So getting some things done, and it's tricky. My mother-in-law sold her home after 40 years last year. I mean, I've been with my husband 10 years. I've been in her life for 10 years. She knows what I do. And we had to fight tooth and nail over some of the improvements. I mean, we were in a knockdown, drag out fight over replacing interior doors and hardware, which is not that big of a deal. It makes a difference. It's not that expensive, but she said, no, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, yes, you do. and staging is another thing. I mean, I'm a big fan of accessories. If you can see, I always tell my clients, you get a house ready and it's a blank slate, you need accessories. A staged home will sell quicker and for more money, guaranteed. Because people just fall in love with being able to picture themselves in the home, and having an empty room just doesn't always work. And I ended up, covering the cost for that for my mother-in-law, because she was not going to agree to it. I got past the door issue, but she was not going to have it staged. And I said, well, we're doing it. This is what we're doing. And I ended up selling the home for $95,000 more than we listed for.
Whoa.
So in turn, she wrote me a fantastic review, which you can find on Zillow, that says, as an 80-year-old woman who did not want to listen to my dear daughter-in-law, who I love very much, it was truly the best decision. So in addition to getting someone in with a lot of resources, it's important to find a professional that has these experiences, so that, you can let them do their job, and try not to fight it. Fresh paint, fresh carpet is going to make all the difference. Yes, there's some truth in saying, buyer wants to come in and make it their own, but trust me when I tell you, with 25 years experience, if it's fresh, if it's clean, if it's new, new for what we need to, upgrade, it will sell quicker for more money, and you will get your return on investment. So this is the fun part, because, even though all of these things are really over and above what my normal job description would be, this is the part that I really enjoy, is helping people through the process and getting the work done, and showing them the increased value, and then getting to the table and say, see, aren't you so glad you listened to me?
Absolutely.
That is a great point, Veronica, because it's very similar in some ways in my business. All of my business comes from referrals from former clients, professionals in the industry, a few hospitals. But when I'm able to lead a family through the process and help them every single step along the way, and a simple example would be power of attorney. A lot of people think they know what it is, and they know a little bit about what it is, but there's healthcare power of attorney, financial power of attorney. I'm not a lawyer, but I can explain what it is and what it isn't, and what they can do, and some resources to go to. And that's just one document that's needed. And this creates, without understanding the limitations of what it is and what it means, it creates stress for people. I've heard of families fighting tooth and nail. She doesn't want to give power of attorney. I said, let me explain what it is and what it isn't. And that is a little bit enlightening right then and there. And most people, if you haven't dealt with it, why would you know? You really don't. You have a vague idea, something to do with a will, kind of, sort of, and it's not. Along with a lot of the processes of senior living, Medicaid, Medicare, legal, healthcare. There's a lot of terminology, and I deal with a lot of very capable, intelligent people who do not take their day off kicking tires in assisted living. It's not like if you're looking for a house, that's fun, going to houses. But assisted living is not something people take their, or senior living, that take their time to really investigate. But so that is that process, and understanding the process and showing them the way it can work and what's best options for themselves. And that is so gratifying, because when a senior moves in, and of course I follow up with everyone afterwards just to see and make sure we're all good, that's the most gratifying. It's like, okay, well, I didn't create the situation, but we're going to help Granny the best we can. And a lot of my clients are baby boomers. I'm in that cohort myself. So I understand that the emotions they face as well, because there's a lot of mixed emotions. And it's just an all around, a help. One thing I just like to say too, and along with the field that I'm in, I'm kind of like a broker, although I don't call myself a broker. But if someone needs to move somewhere in senior living and they want my help, there's no charge to them. So that's a pretty nice thing. And people don't realize that. So I thought I'd share that.
I think
it's important.
Oh, it is. I think with both of you, I think, I don't know if maybe I'm unique or maybe I'm like most people, I come to both of your professions with kind of like pigeonhole you, like, okay, Veronica, you're a realtor, you will sell my house. Ellen, you are a senior placement specialist. You are going to help me find my next place. And don't realize that you both bring a tremendous amount of resources beyond what we think of directly. And I think that's really important for people to know.
Yes. And I think that's one of the, it's funny, it's not where my compensation comes from, but it's where the best, I think the best value comes from. If someone is dealing with dementia, Alzheimer's Association's got a ton of things going on. There's community of things that are resources for them. There's government, there's private, private businesses. And to be able to say, hey, you might benefit from a money manager. Most people don't know what a money manager is. So I will enlighten them. I'll say, here's 3 people that I think can help you. I know them all. I feel comfortable with all of them. They're all good. You decide. That's just an example, and that I can say that because I've taken the time to get to know these people and what they do and how they can serve this family. And because when families are in that vacuum, they're in that vacuum, and they might not know what's out there or who's good, who to trust. That's a big thing.
It's a tremendous thing when you're talking about homes and moving.
Yes.
I was just going to say that to echo what Ellen said, having resources from professionals that and trust is huge. I too have a whole laundry list of, professionals, money managers, downsizers, cleaners, contractors, all of the things that, folks need and maybe don't even know that they need. Yeah. And the biggest thing that I can stress in this situation is that making sure you do work with someone who you know and trust, and then take their advice, listen to them. I'm sure that Ellen can echo this 1,000 times, that, if I have a client who really trusts me and says, okay, Veronica, what should we do and how should we do it? And of course, I give options and let my clients know around every turn, you could do this or you could do this. And sometimes they'll ask me what I would do. I usually don't say I would do this because it's not me. But if they ask me, I will give them my opinion. And if they listen to my advice and trust the process, it just turns out so much better. If I'm suggesting, and I don't over suggest, I'm not saying you need to remodel your bathroom or your kitchen to, spend $50,000, $60,000. I'm really suggesting impactful upgrades and things that are really going to matter and that will give you the most bang for your buck, like interior doors. Sometimes listen, because at the end of the day, when we see this whole process through, if clients have really taken our advice and trusted us, they have a better experience. We have a better experience. They make more money. It's less stressful. And as you said, Debbie, like people do buttonhole us. And then also for my industry specifically, I mean, there are more shows about how real estate doesn't actually work on TV than I can count. And, people have like ideas about, well, we should do this. You should list higher so that we can negotiate down. And that's really not at all what the best strategy is. So I do fight a lot with, people having ideas about how our business works and they really don't know. So that's why, again, stressing, vet the person you're going to work with, make sure they're the right person and trust that they're going to do the best job for you. And hopefully it'll be us because we do the best job, but you have to be comfortable with whomever it is and just trust that they will, have your best interests at heart.
And I know that when I am giving people information about whether it's legal, whether it's Medicaid, Medicare, I give them resources. I say, here, don't take my word for it, but here's who you can check this out with, verify it. I recommend you do that, and they should. If it's aid and attendance, or if it's Medicaid or Medicare or anything legal, by all means, reach out to these people and verify what I've just shared with you. But sometimes by just taking the time and sharing with people and informing them and educating them, while I'm not charging them for that, the clock's not ticking every 15-minute increments with information. And so it's digestible, it's easy for them to understand, and it's the overall picture of how it could work for them. And that's important. So in the first conversation I have with people, I do want to find out if there's real estate, if there's a reverse mortgage, right? That's something out there. If there's a lien, if it's paid off, if there's a second mortgage. And so that's part of the mix, and that's a piece of it too. So we find out what the exact financial situation is.
A lot of people can be equity heavy, but just in the same way, you mentioned reverse mortgages, and also, the market did take a turn, and, we are seeing that folks are getting back to sort of balanced from when they purchased, if they purchased, during the boom. But sometimes the real estate can be not necessarily an asset, but something that needs to be cleared out and maximize. But sometimes it's just like the big elephant in the room, where it's not going to really make any money, but it's also costing money, and it just becomes a little bit of a headache. And and a lot of times too, I'll deal with children that have parents that unfortunately have passed away, and they have a house full of mom and dad's stuff, and they don't know what to do, and how, and a lot of times it just gets ignored because it just seems so overwhelming. So that's another thing that I can help with, is let's dive in and kind of figure out what we need to do. Do we need to clear it out? There are services that can come in and really identify whether things are valuable. There's going to be family valuables that might not be monetarily valuable, but there are companies that can come in and determine, is this bowl an antique, or is it something that was bought at a yard sale for, whatever. So that's a big thing, because it could take years for people just to go through what's in a home, and it's overwhelming and it's emotional, and that ends up, people ignore it. But we can help with that as well. I mean, there's organizers, downsizers, other companies. So definitely wealth of people that can come in and really help make it easy for whatever the situation is.
That's been so much a part of what we've tried to accomplish at Winter Grace, is collecting resources, helping to educate people ahead of a crisis, because oftentimes we come to a situation where someone needs to move and it is a crisis, and you're operating from a crisis mindset. But having the preparation and the education ahead of time, and starting 5 years ahead or 3 years ahead, or even a year ahead, whatever, you're coming to it from a much better place, much less stressful place, a much healthier place. And that's just just the ideal way to go into it. It doesn't always work that way, of course, but it's a better way to do that. So I decide, maybe, my parents decide, okay, it's time to move. What's the first step? What should I be doing? What should they be doing first?
I think from my standpoint, you're like, okay, we're moving. Definitely reach out to a real estate professional, have them come out and assess the home. So if I'm in situations like this, I come out with, my marketing material that kind of explains the process, but I'll walk through the house and get an idea of what I'm dealing with and what's going on. And then we'll sit down and talk about timing. And my timing also is whatever the client's timing is. And this is regardless of age, situation, or whatever. I always tell my clients the best time to sell or buy is when you're ready and when you're prepared to do it. So don't let the market really dictate that. I mean, usually December 15th and on is probably not the best, but like if that's when you need to sell, people sell all the time. But I will sit down with clients, go through the house, make some suggestions on what may need to be done, find out if they have a budget for it, find out if they have contractors that they prefer to use. If they don't, I just present our program and say, well, I have someone that can come out, he'll give you an estimate. And it's very transparent. This is the estimate. And as long as we're fixing up with the idea that we're going to market right away, you can pay for it at closing, in certain circumstances, as long as there's equity in the home. And I do ask those questions, what is your mortgage? What do you owe? And we talk about market data for that moment, and again, if it's 5 years ahead of time, then, these are just things that now they have a plan in place. But if we're going to the market quickly, these numbers should be pretty accurate. And we talk about what it's worth as it is and what it would be worth if they do make the small or, maybe larger improvements that I'm suggesting. And that way they can see the difference. We talk about days on market. We talk about the marketing that we provide, our process when we like to go on the market. Do we have open houses? Are they going to be home? Are they going to be living there? And I explain all of what we do. We do a lot of social media marketing. I do some print things, but these days, by the time something's in print, the house is likely under contract already. So we have, I have a whole marketing department that really, we stay on top of what's working and we can make sure to market their home. The idea from a listing agent standpoint is to get the house looking great, provide all of our resources for contractors. If we're going to stage the property, we have professional, amazing photographers. We can do drone photography, which allows for an aerial view of the home if that's appropriate. And we also have a 3D option where we can do a 3D walkthrough the home if that's appropriate. So we would discuss all of these things and then a timeline, of course. And sometimes it's very gray, but giving them the information. And I take on as much or as little as my clients would like me to. I'm happy to arrange to meet contractors, to walk through, to obtain the estimates. Once I get involved, I can do as much as they would like me to do, or as little. Some people want the referrals to several different providers and they can call and make appointments, or they want me to schedule it. I mean, we're happy to step in and do, again, as little or as much as somebody wants us to do. And then once we get to put the sign in the ground, that's when the magic happens. It's to advertise it and discuss at that point what, like right now, we have been dealing with a lot of multiple offer situations, and there is a strategy around how to handle that. So I explain that to my clients and say, this is what I like to do. Are you okay with this? Do you like this plan? And then we review offers, and I'm able to dissect and say, okay, this is good and this is why, and this might not be so great. And the goal is to have at least 2 offers in front of them so that they can choose which one makes most sense. And then we follow along all the way to closing and handle any hiccups that may arise or not. Our seller's guide says 5 simple steps to sold, and I always tell my sellers it's a lot more than 5 steps, but we break it down into small chunks and again, try to handle everything as make it as easy as possible for the sellers, down to pre-signing so that they don't have to actually attend the closing if they don't want to. I also have an attorney and title company affiliated, with our team so that we can, if there's legal advice needed, we can send it over to our preferred title attorney to answer any questions. And that's, initially at no cost. So unless they engage their services. So just again, being able to offer the full gamut of resources and support. We've just recently settled a client who lived in California, and the house that they were selling here was held in a special needs trust, which is something that I had not dealt with before. And our title company was involved, and it really, they handled it without any issue. The client was really concerned that that was going to cause problems, but being able to connect with our title company and have them sort of handle the whole situation made it very easy and smooth. And they were very, very pleased with how that turned out. So we're capable of whatever we might get thrown our way.
Oh,
So
great.
if there is a senior transition and Veronica's team has reached out, they reach out to Veronica and her team, and there's a senior involved and it's not decided, or it is decided, but they've got to maneuver what's going on. The agent that is working on that particular sale with the family will either contact me and invite me to participate at either the original meeting or at a subsequent meeting, so that I can be there as a consultant if they would like that, just to make sure that things don't slip through the cracks, and depending on what their specific goals are. If it's a long-term goal, it's very different than it's a short-term goal. If there's health care needed, is different than if it's independent living, but there can be independent living at a continuing care retirement community, a CCRC. Or it could be an independent situation where a community that has either apartments or cottages. So there's a lot of different options out there. But again, it's the exploratory process of what is needed and what is the time frame. That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes going into it that we'll bring Ellen along on those, like she said, initial meetings. And sometimes we don't, but as part of our team, we do offer having her come out, because even if it is, I'm sure she would agree, several years ahead of an actual move, it's really good to know, again, that was my aunt's issue. I don't want to live and walk down, just a dreary hospital hallway. That was her thing.
That was her impression of
exactly.
Yeah.
That was her impression. That's what she, didn't want to deal with. And, so she did at the time go out and take a look at some different things, because that's what Ellen can help unpack for people, is what would be the best for you based on what you're telling me you want. Or let me, show you that it's not all long hospital, hallways. I actually, I have a master's degree in exercise science and health promotion, and I worked at a CCRC and ran the fitness center for probably a year, some years ago. And it was great. I mean, it was, like a hallway condo type building, but it was very, for what it was, very vibrant, and they had a really great engagement. And, the fitness center was as busy as you would expect it to be. And I would run classes, and they're not all the same, and some people may want different things. So what Ellen and I do on the buyer side, for me, when I'm helping people buy homes, is a lot like what Ellen does to help people find what, might be a good next step. So very parallel.
I love the fact that one of the many messages I'm receiving is that everyone's situation is unique. The situation they're coming from, the situation to where they want to go to, and it's just really important to have professionals who have experience and can bring their experience together to serve that unique situation best. And it's I'm sure every no matter how many homes you list and sell and how many clients you help place, every single situation is different. So the experience that you bring in and the quality of care is what really can set situation apart and make it so much better.
Absolutely.
That's what keeps it interesting.
You are not kidding.
Everybody's different. Everybody's different, and their situation is different, and that's of course.
One of the things I love about the business is that it's no 2 days are the same. And I tell my team time. I'm like, never say never. None of you have been in this business long enough to say, well, I've never seen that before, because, you know, that happens to me several times a week, and I'm 25 years old. So it's, it makes it interesting.
One of my mom's favorite expressions was, if you live long enough, you see everything. And over the last almost 2 years since she passed, my sister and I are like, oh, she didn't live long enough, because she would have seen so many things she hasn't seen in the, you know, but
the one thing I'd like to impress, and I know we've said it, but I think it is so true. Veronica brought it up, and I think I said it earlier. It's really on a family's timeline. That is the key thing, because I don't like pushy salespeople. Okay, so I don't want to be like that, and there's no reason to be. If someone wants to engage with either of us or both of us or whatever, it is to help them. So what works for you?
Absolutely.
What is your best mode of communication? When would be an appropriate time to get back to you? And so on and so on. And that really is the best way to serve a client, if you truly are in the business to serve the client. And
absolutely,
it's a best practice to be respectful and to not, there's no reason to push anybody. I can't even imagine that.
No.
And I think that's what keeps, I think, a lot of people from even dealing with senior living, or perhaps real estate, I'm not sure, but no one wants to feel pressured and pushed when they have enough burdens in their mind. And, you know, I'd like to think of us as people who are willing and able to impart some education that will really help people relieve their stress, give them a better understanding of some of the processes in general, and then specifically what their needs are.
100%. And real estate agents do face that, I think, a lot, as being pushy salespeople. And my license does say salesperson. However, I definitely consider myself more of a consultant, you know, and work more in that role, because this is a marathon, not a sprint, you know, for me. I've been in it for a long time. I plan to be in it for a long time. So I have no problem talking with someone, like I said, years before. And I think that exactly what you said, Ellen, is what maybe hinders people from reaching out ahead of really needing it right then, because they feel like they might be pressured, or they, you know,
definitely.
I think we've,
I think this conversation is really going to help to alleviate some of those concerns and show what the process can be like, should be like in an ideal situation. And so I think that'll be really very helpful, just from that standpoint, to alleviate some of the stress and fear.
Absolutely.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
We're not scary.
Not at all. Not at all. Well, ladies, thank you so much for bringing your expertise and your care to our fair this time around. I just appreciate it. And the recording will be available on our website, of course, and with your contact information and what next steps are or what they could be. And I just really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Debbie. It's been great
Having me.
Thanks. Have a wonderful day.